The pasuk concludes, Balak b'tzipa melech l'Moav b'Sehi. Balak, the son of Tzipor, was the king of Moab at that moment. What does it mean? That means that he was appointed that moment. Before that, he was not king. So Rashi says, B'Sehi, lo yiroi l'malchus. Minisiche Midian hoyo. He was from the prince of Midian. The Kevon Shemes Sichon Mano aleim l'tzorch shor. Meaning until then, Sichon, who was the protector of all the nations in that area. So the prince was a prince. Nobody was chosen to be actually in a position of that his word was the final word. But once Sichon was no longer there, they had to put a person in the position to give the final word. So that's when he rose to this position of authority, of power. Vayishlach ba'alochem el bilom ben beor psora. He sent agents. It's interesting. The Torah uses the term malochim. We spoke about Yaakov, Yishlach Yaakov malochim. When he was wanted to evaluate his relation with Esav, it says he sent malochim le'Esav ochiv, right? Stay Moav, to stay to Seir, stay Edom. So if they have one interpretation, malachim means malachim mamish. He sent angels, or it says agents. Malachim could be agents because angels are God's agents. We had last week's parsha where when Moshe asks permission to go through the Edomite territory, and he gives the background, he says, God sent his malach to take the Jews out of Egypt. And Rashi over there says, who's the malach? Moshe Rabbeinu. Because since he was, and we find that tzaddikim are called malachim. So therefore it has that context of angel, just as the angel is God's agent. So Moshe being the malach, he was doing God's shlichus, God's bidding. But over here, Vayishlach Malochim el Bilom. Balak sent Malochim to Bilom. So we see from here, seemingly, that the word Malochim is even used in a context where it has no relevance to Kedusha. Not in representation or anything. I mean, here he's sending these agents to commission Bilom to destroy the Jewish people, or at least to deflect them, that they shouldn't bring that harm upon them. Asher ha'anor eretz v'neyamo likrolo lemor, to summon him, saying, "Hine am yotzei Mitzrayim." This nation, behold, this nation went out of Egypt. Hine chises ein ha'oretz. He covered the eye of the land, v'yoshiv mamuli, and he's dwelling opposite me. I have to deal with this issue. Rashi, psora. In Aramaic, psora means a table. A money changer had a table. They bring all kinds of currencies, and he would change the currency, exchange them. It's like a money changer. Everybody brings him all kinds of different types of currencies. Can't call him Alochim, Bilam being the one who could deal with any issue because he had the power to curse. So when any king had an issue and it couldn't bring about it on a conventional level, he would summon and commission Bilam to act on his behalf. Vipshuto shel mikro kach shem hamokom. Psor means that was his location. Eretz Beyamo shel Balak v'shem hoyo. V'zoyim esnabi v'omer osid ato limloch. Initially, Bilam had given a prophecy that Balak was going to become a king, although initially he was a prince. Vim Tomar, famous question. Why did Hashem allow that his Shechina should come upon a non-Jew who's a Russia, who's evil? Because otherwise, the nation of the world would have an excuse saying, if we would have prophets, we would have turned to go on a good path. Hamed lem neviim. So Hashem says, here's a Navi. Bilam's a Navi. They appeared to get Olam, and they went and they breached the ultimate fence of the world. Meaning in terms of, there were certain protocols of modesty, of behavior, and this is the whole story with Midian, with the Balak. He says the only way he could destroy the Jews is because he says, the God of the Jews, he will not tolerate licentiousness. So for the sake of saving Moab, Midian, was his solution. The Jews draw them into this, and you'll be able to destroy them. Likro lo hakri hoyse shalo lahadoso shoy posik lo mamen hare. Likro lo meaning when he sent him and made the request, he made the offer so attractive that it was Bilam's best interest to take the offer because he offered a tremendous amount of money. Amiyotzim Mitzrayim v'toma mazik zikho. Hinek kisas in oretz sichon v'o koyu shomrim usonu amdo lein varogim. They covered the eye. What's the eye? They were the protectors, so they watched over Canaan. So they were the equivalent of the eye of all the nations. They took out the eye, so nobody's watching over us any longer. That supervision, which guaranteed our existence, is no longer there. If that's the case, we're at a point we have to do something. We need a solution to stop the Jews from coming in. I was thinking when I read it, Rashi is citing a Chazal. They took out the eyes of the land by killing Sichon and Og, the two protectors. We find by the plague of Arbe, the locust. What does it say over there? That locusts are going to be at a level of intensity. The locust will cover the eye of the land. So the Midrash says over there, just the Midrash, that there was such a wave of locusts that came in, it blocked the sun, that the rays of the sun did not illuminate the earth. The eye of the land, you could not see, it was dark. That's how thick the locusts were. But there's a word from Rav Shimshon the Hirsch. He says a shot over there of every part of the human body in terms of function. Your hand has a capacity. Your feet have a capacity. The eye has unlimited, compared to anything else, the eye has an unlimited capacity. What you're able to see, to span in moments, the eye has, relatively speaking, it's unlimited, the eye. The earth itself has a potential to give forth unlimited amount of bounty. Why? Because in the earth itself, there are nutrients in the soil that continuously, if there's rain or you have the seed, continuously gives out, unceasingly gives out its bounty, continuously. What happens if you actually sap the nutrients from that earth? It comes arid, it no longer produces, there's no longer produce. When the locusts come and eat the vegetation, they don't only take the vegetation off the surface. They actually, after they finish eating and scrounging, whatever they do over there, that earth itself is not plantable anymore. You have to recreate those nutrients in the earth. Otherwise, that's mechisa sein oretz. They're going to cover the eye of the land over there. They're going to take the eye out. Eye represents potential, unlimited potential. The locusts, when they'll eat the vegetation, there will no longer be potential anymore. That's mechisa sein oretz over there. Here we said it's like the ox grazing. When an ox grazes, not only, and it licks, its saliva goes on the earth, and not only eats the vegetation, As a result of that, nothing grows there any longer. So therefore, when he's telling Bilam, the issue over here, it's chisein esein oretz. When the Jews come, they're going to actually, the eye, which means the ability of a future, there's no future any longer. Wherever they come, whatever's there, they destroy, and there's no future in that location anymore. And then they go on. That's our predicament. Therefore, we use the same term, hine chisein oretz. That's what I was thinking. Now, go, please, orally, curse them. Or is an expression of curse, which is a very extreme level of curse. Because he's more powerful than us. Maybe I'll be able to smite him, like our shenim and oritz. To what degree do I want to smite him? Not to destroy him, only to drive him to the land. Meaning, Balak's intent was not to destroy the Jewish people. It was only to ward them off, to deflect them, and they should be driven out of the land. Not that they should be driven from the face of the earth, because we see the moment when Hashem says to Bilam, what's this all about? He says, they commissioned me to wipe him off the face of the earth. So from that, we see that Bilam's hate for the Jews was more extreme than Balak's hate for the Jews. Balak wanted just self-preservation. They should be saved. Agarshenu min ha'oretz. He didn't say, take him out. I was commissioned, take him out totally. That's all I want you to do. Ki yadati es asher tevorech mevorach asher ta'or. Because I know what you bless is blessed, and what you curse is cursed. Your word, whether it's positive or negative, always comes to fruition. So therefore, of course I want you. So over here, Rabbeinu Bachi asks a good question, and Or Chaim asks a question. If all he wants is self-preservation, one of the is Bilam, bless us. Bless us that we shouldn't be destroyed, we shouldn't be harmed. What does he ask him that he should curse the Jews? Because he says, because what you bless is blessed, what you curse is curse, so bless us. So here the Or Chaim HaKodesh says, Balak understood that Bilam has no power to give bracha. And whatever he says in a positive, it's only because he's an astrologer and he knows the future. And he attributes the good outcome to himself, but factually, he was a fake. You know, these tell over a story. There was this obstetrician. When a woman would come and she'd be pregnant, he would write in his, on the record, boy. And he would tell the woman, you're going to have a boy. Okay? 9 months later, sure enough, the boy's born. So the doctor says, look in the record, I wrote down boy. What happens if it was a girl? He didn't show the woman the record. She says, but you told me it's boy. He says, no, you're making a mistake. You don't recall accurately. I said a girl. So if it was a boy, he showed him the record boy. If not, so it always worked out the way the doctor had a reputation that from the time of conception, knew exactly it's going to be a boy or a girl. Bilam, because he was an astrologer, he understood exactly what ultimately was going to be. But he would say to the person, you're going to become wealthy. You're going to assume a position of power. It's only because he knew it from the zodiac. But people attributed that he's a person who's able to give a blessing, a bracha. Balak knew the truth, that he has the power to curse because he's the essence of evil. Of course, curse emanates, ayin hara emanates from what? From that evil source. So what did he say? What you curse is cursed. It would have been an insult. So just to flatter him, he says, what you bless is blessed, what you curse is cursed. But he knew the truth, that his blessing has no value, because otherwise he would have asked to be blessed. And as a result of that, they would have been protected from the Jews. That's Or Chaim HaKodesh. And the language I think I mentioned yesterday says that Bilam's brocha had no greater value than Birchas Chamor. Those are the words of the Or Chaim HaKodesh that I mentioned. I don't remember if I mentioned yesterday. It had no greater value than the blessing of a donkey. That's about all. A donkey blesses you. A parrot blesses you. Does a parrot have any value? That's a birchas chamor. That means nothing. So the only reason why he said Ashitvorach Vorach was only that it should not be an insult. Pure false flattery.
Rabbi.
1 second. Or Chaim, it says his blessing was no more than birchas chamor. Right? Did I explain yesterday why? It's interesting. What came to mind, he said chamor. What's a chamor? So I'd mentioned the Pasuk in Yechezkel, he refers to the Egyptian people as chamorim, right? Besar chamor besarim. I spoke about this yesterday. Okay? Alan, were you on?
Yes, Rabbi.
Okay, so you know it, so I don't have to repeat it.
It
didn't ask Balak. Balak didn't ask that he should destroy the Jewish people. He said nakeh. So Rashi over there cites the Midrash, the two interpretations nakeh. Either word lenakos means to deduct, meaning minimize them, or nakeh means to smite them. So Rashi says nakeh bo ani v'ami naki b'hem. Davarache loshen mishnah menakalo min adomim. Like a person who reduces the debt, he reduces the amount of money that's owed. Lachase behem ma'at. So he only has to minimize them, not to take them out totally. I mentioned yesterday that they wanted to conquer this property, Sichon. So Bilam cursed that Moab, and therefore Sichon was able to take possession to conquer that property, that region. So here the Sephora makes it a point also, what the Orachaim HaKadosh says, Ashetvorch Tvorach, Hine kocho lohoi levorech. In reality, Bilam did not have the ability to bless. Aval hoyel kalel, baski ovon, obekivin shor. Either he'll mention that some level of sin, or he knows that exact moment. L'chein lo shol mimene shivorcheu lenatzeach. He didn't ask him for a blessing that he should be victorious. Or he should just be, they should be able to survive. It was purely to ingratiate themselves with him. They knew his brach was worthless. That he shouldn't think they see him as a curse. He's a cursed person. Cursed person is able to curse. Same idea as we said. You know, it's interesting. To Bilam, the greatest embarrassment, as we mentioned yesterday, Bilam was the one who gave the final solution, the Paro to destroy the Jews. And ultimately, they believed that by enslaving them with an unlimited amount of physical work, they would ultimately destroy them. And it says, the more they afflicted them, the more they proliferated. So the Maral of Prague over there explains in the Gurus Hashem that a human being who's malnourished, he's not able to procreate. Because when you wear down a person physically, it's based on your physical health. That person is able to impregnate another person, or the woman's able to conceive. But a person who's totally malfunctions physically, is depleted, you can't, one person's not able to conceive. But here was to the opposite. The more they afflicted him, the more we increased the number. It was to the contrary. So the Maral of Prague explains over there in the verse Hashem, every human being, what's his essence? His essence is his physicality. So the moment you minimize the physicality, he's not able to proliferate. Klal Yisrael, our essence is our spirituality. So the more they wore down, spirituality is unlimited, physicality is finite. So the more he wore us down physically, that means we were less finite, and our true profile became prominent. Because of that, that's the reason why we proliferated in unlimited numbers. Shisha B'Keres, there were 8 children in every litter, and each child was born healthy for that reason. That's what happened. So here, Bilam says, gives a solution. You're going to put a cap on them. You can control them, and the whole thing backfired. And not only he created this invisible shield that they can't break through it, he says no Jew will escape Egypt. Not only one Jew escaped, millions of people left Egypt. So in the world's eye, what did make Bilam look like? Bilam look like a fool. Here he's supposed to be the certain person who has this ability, and it's public knowledge now on a global level that the man, he's worthless. So he had a score to settle, besides being evil. Because here his whole essence, he prides himself in what he's able to do, and here the Jews disproved him and showed that the man is a sham. He's a zero. So he was out to prove to the world he will destroy them, which was the original intent in Egypt, that to take them off the face of the earth. That was Bill. Very often people have a claim against a rabbi, and they join together, and everybody says the same thing. But the truth is it's not true. Each person who goes against the rabbi, he has his own axe to grind. I once asked him to come to a wedding, he didn't show up. One day he acknowledged somebody else, he didn't acknowledge me. Everybody has his reason why he has something against the rabbi. But they have this joint group. Everybody says for the same reason, but it's not for the reason. Everybody's coming from his own vantage point. As we say, everyone has his own axe to grind. Bilam had his axe to grind. His axe to grind was even more than Balak. Balak wanted to be protected. Bilam, initially, his solution was the final solution. Not only did it work, it blew up in his face. Therefore, he's going to square this away forever to remove the Jews from the face of the earth for that reason.
Rabbi, so you're saying he had an accident?
Yitzchak had said to Esav, or to Yaakov, Hakol kol Yaakov Yadayim de Esav. So he actually quantified each of them. The power of Yaakov lies in his mouth. That's Torah and Tefillah. The power of Esav is his physicality. He will have the upper hand within the context of physicality to destroy. Over here, when Balak did his research, he says the leader of the Jews, Kochel Bepeh, his power lies in his mouth. We're going to commission a person who's also his power lies in his mouth. He has the ability to curse. So it seems to be this Amalek is what is Yadayim de Esav. Amalek is an exaggerated outgrowth of Esav. Amalek is Edom. It's part of Edom. So that's Yadayim de Esav. Bilam is like some whatever it is, where he emanates from. Why did God give him that power? But he has that level of representation of evil to counter the Yaakov, which is the evil, which is Peh, which is the mouth. But we're going to see later when he was killed. The Torah makes it a point. How was he killed? He was killed by Chorev. Torah makes it a point. He was killed by the sword. So Rashi over there cites the Midrash. Doesn't really make a difference how he was killed. He was killed in the war. What does Torah make a point? He was killed by Chorev. So Rashi over there cites the Midrash. The Midrash says, what is the persona of the Jew? The persona of the Jew is his mouth. The persona of the Goy is Al-Char B'chot Tichiyah. You live by the sword. He took our persona and presented himself that his ability lies in the mouth. So we took his craft, which is the sword, we killed him with the sword. That's what the Torah is making a point. He was killed by Chorev for that reason. So I asked the question in the past. It says, why was he killed by the sword? Because his craft was Al-Char B'chot Tichiyah. And he lived in the context with what? With his mouth, which is that's our craft. Therefore, we took his craft and we destroyed it with his craft. So I asked the question, seemingly, Achar Tichya, that is the characteristic of Esav. Bilam was not part of Edom. And yet, Chazal tell us the reason why Torah points out, because his craft is Achar Tichya, and he was killed. We took his craft, we killed him with his craft. But Achar Tichya is unique to Esav. So how do we understand it? That's the question I asked in the past. Esav believed because he was the Bechor, he was the firstborn, he was the heir apparent to his father. And therefore, he had relevance to fully take over the position of his father. But Esav had no understanding who his father was. His father was the Merkava for the Shekhinah. Esav had no relevance to God's presence. But he believed that he had relevance to spirituality, whatever that means. When Yitzchak gave the bracha to Yaakov, Akoko Yaakov Daim Beis Esav, Charbel Tichya was not a blessing. It was a categorization. It was a classification. Esav is no different than all the nations of the world. Esav misunderstood it. He believed that it was a blessing. It wasn't a blessing. It was a classification. Esav, what you think you are, that's not what you are. You're Achar Tichya, no different than all the other nations. You may have a more intense Achar Tichya, but factually, you have no relevance to what I'm all about. And then Yaakov was designated as that spiritual person to be the Merkava, and he was. He became the location for the Shekhinah in existence. And he was the founding father of the Jewish people because of that. Okay? But we find this misunderstanding carried continuously through. When Hashem offered the Torah to the nations of the world, and he offered it to Edom, what did Edom say? I can't accept it. Because we have a blessing from our forefather, those are the words of the Medrash. They took it as a blessing. That misunderstanding carried through continuously. The reason why they rejected the Torah, because we have a blessing. And since it says Lo Tirtzach in the 10 Commandments, therefore it doesn't fit exactly with our profile. Because we have a bracha. When we wanted to go through the Edomite territory, and Moshe Rabbeinu says that Hashem said to Malach and we prayed, our power lies in our mouth. So what did Edom say? It says, V'yetze l'krosam b'cherev. They came out against Klausel with the sword. So Rashi says to the Midrash, you're priding yourself, you have a bracha. Koko Yaakov, we also have a bracha. So this misunderstanding continues to carry through. Esav understood this is a bracha. It wasn't a bracha. It was identifying who he was and actually what he was. He's no different than all nations of the world. Now, what's the proof? Because the Torah points out Bilam was killed by Chorev, which was his craft. Archaber Tchichia is the craft of the nations of the world. So that misunderstanding is the basis why Esav believed he rejected to receive the Torah at Sinai. And Hashem allowed him to have this understanding. He should reject it. Because if he would have accepted it, we would have had a problem. He would have been at our doorstep continuously. Question leads. First, let's talk about what the pasuk actually says. It says he put kruvim at the entrance of the Garden of Eden, so Adam should not be able to return. And it says it was cherev mislahetes. There was a swinging sword, and the ones who guarded the entrance to Gan Eden were kruvim. Rashi says, who are kruvim? Malachi chavola. Angels, accosting angels, they were swinging the sword. Therefore, as much as Adam would want to go into Gan Eden, he couldn't go near it. So that was the protection. But what are Malachi chavola? What are those angels? What did they represent? They represent the most negative force in existence. Those are the nether forces. That's why he couldn't go in. Because since he sinned, he created that. By eating of the tree of knowledge, he created a force which would not allow him to go back in for that reason. So the famous word I mentioned for Rav Meir Shapiro. Rav Meir Shapiro find the term kruvim mentioned twice in the Torah. Well, after Adam and Chava were driven from the Gan Eden, it says Hashem placed kruvim with the cherev of Mislahetes outside the entrance of Gan Eden, so he shouldn't be able to return. And the other time we find kruvim mentioned in Torah is on the Aron, on the kapores, on the covering of the Aron. There were kruvim, cherubs attached to it, or part of it. So Rashi says in Bereshis, what were kruvim? Malachi chavolah, accosting angels. The kruvim on top of the Aron, Rashi says, Peneim kipnei tinokos. Their faces look like newborn children, small, representing the ultimate impurity. So Meir Shapiro asked, either it represents the ultimate pure or the ultimate in the negative. How do you have the same word representing literally being the opposite of the other? That's the question he asked. So he said, where it says kruvim by the Aron, what was contained in the Aron? Luchos, shivrei luchos in the Sefer Torah. That was in the Aron. If you take that child, the Jewish child, and you put him and expose him to that kind of environment, he's as pure as a newborn child. But if you take that same child and you expose him to a sword, to that weapon, he becomes a monster. That same child. It's what you create, that environment. It's environment of spirituality, he becomes like an angel. You expose him, that same child, to the sword, he turns him into a monster. That was the word. That's what Ramesh Shapiro had said. So he wanted to create an institution of Torah that take the Jews to turn them into angels. That was the bottom line. Okay, we have to stop.